In this video 7, we're going to be taking a look at applying conditional formatting, and that is going to be located on pages Excel 64 and 65. And so far, you've used formatting to change the appearance of different types of data, such as dates, dollar amounts, worksheet titles, and column labels. But you can also use formatting to highlight important aspects of the data itself. For example, you can apply formatting that automatically changes the font color to red for any cells where a cost maybe exceeds $100, and to green where ad costs are below $50. This type of formatting is what we call conditional formatting, and that's because Excel automatically applies different formats depending on the conditions that you specify. If the data meets your conditions, Excel applies the formats that you tell it to. And formatting is updated if you change the data in the worksheet. Now, of course, another way that you can do this is through data bars, which is conditional formatting, and they are just a type of it that visually illustrates the differences amongst values. So let's take a look at step 1 on here. And step 1 tells us that we want to select the range I4 to I30. So we're choosing our totals right over here. We're just selecting this range I4 to I30. Next, we're going to go to our Home tab, and on our Home tab, we want to click on the Conditional Formatting button in the Styles group. So once again, going back to the Styles group, we're going to click on this Conditional Formatting button right here. Next, we're going to point to data bars. And then finally, we're going to point to the light blue data bar, which is in the second row, second one from the left. And right there, if you put your mouse pointer over it, it gives you the screen tip, tells you that it's the light blue data bar. And we're just pointing to it, we're not clicking on it just yet. Now, of course, the live preview shows us this formatting, how it will appear in the worksheet. And of course, notice that the length of the bar in each of the cells reflects its values relative to the other cells in the section. Of course, now we can move our mouse pointer up one, and we're going to preview the green data bar. And of course, that is the first row and the second one from the left. That's the one that we're going to choose for this one. So we're going to choose the green data bar on there. So when you click on it, the conditional formatting box disappears, but our conditional formatting is here. So we notice that we can take a look at this and automatically tell, okay, which one's the largest. We look for the cell that's completed the most, and we can see that this is it right here. The next step on what we're going to do, step 3, tells us that we want to select the range G4 to G30. So here's G4, we're going to go all the way down to G30. So we've selected this range. Now we're going to go back and click on the conditional formatting button again. And of course, notice there's different options. And each of these different options has a different way of displaying the data. So what we're going to do in this case is that we're going to point to highlight cell rules, which is at the very top. Now, the conditional formatting menu displays all the choices for creating the different types of formatting rules. For an example, you can create a rule for values that are greater than a certain amount, or less than a certain amount, or that's in between two amounts. And we can see that right over here. So, and it will highlight certain cells that meet those requirements. So what we're going to do is in step 4, it tells us to click Between. Now the Between dialog box will open. Now, depending on the choice you made in the Highlight Cell Rules menu, such as greater than or less than, this dialog box will display different input boxes. Now, you can define multiple different conditions and then assign formatting attributes to each one. You can define the conditions list first. The default setting for the first condition is the cell value is on there, and between, so the cell values that are between. Now the value can be a constant, formula, cell reference, or a date. Now the formatting default format is exactly what you want on here, which is the light red fill with dark red text. But however, we don't want to use these numbers. So like I said, we can use formulas, we can use values, anything else that is on there. Now in step 5, what we want to do is we want to type in 2000 in the first text box. So we type in 2000, and you notice that as you type that, this is automatically changing some of these highlighting on here, because now it's looking between values between 2,000 and this number right here, 5,633. However, we don't want 5,633, because then it tells us to type 4,000 in the second text box. And if we move this just out of the way a little bit, you should be able to compare your document with your spreadsheet with the spreadsheet that you see here, and that we notice that all cells with values between 2,000 and 4,000 in column G appear with a light red fill, so it's got this little light fill here, and it has dark red text. Once we have that, we want to accept our changes, and we're just going to go ahead and click on OK. Now this will update automatically, so if one of these would increase up to be between 2,000 and 4,000, or decrease between 2,000 and 4,000, it would highlight that at that point in time. And to show you that, what we're going to do is we're going to click on cell G7. So if we point to G7, notice that right now it's not highlighted, and it has $4,217.68. We're going to type in $3,975.55, and we're going to press our enter key, and notice what happens. It updated automatically. And of course, notice that the sales tax updated, and the total column over here changed as well. Next, we're going to press our Control and Home key to go back up to cell A1 and make sure that you save your work. Now, of course, if you create a conditional formatting rule and then want to change the conditions to reflect a different value or format, you don't need to create a new rule. Instead, you can modify the rule by using the Rule Manager. And of course, that is right up here in the conditional formatting, and we see that there's the Manage Rules that's on there. Now, currently, if I would select a few cells here and go to the Rule Manager, you would notice that there is the rules that's on there. But you can manage those from that instead of making a brand new rule on there. So that concludes the information that's on pages Excel 64 and 65 about applying conditional formatting. You're ready to move on to the next video, in which we're going to be talking about naming and moving a sheet.